Pragmatic Solutions, the player account management platform chosen by today's smart betting and gaming operators. Don't let technical constraints delay you from achieving your business goals. Expand your business, boost your margins, and dominate the market in any leading regulated jurisdiction with our powerful, flexible, and secure iGaming platform. Enjoy its extensive marketing tools, compliance protection, real-time data, and a wide portfolio of over 1,000 industry providers. It's time to upgrade your technology. Let Pragmatic Solutions show you the modern approach. Visit pragmatic.solutions and join the smart thinkers.
Bingo, bango, bongo. Welcome to the podcast here today with Ashley Lang. Ashley is the CEO of the leading PAM platform provider, Pragmatic Solutions. Ashley was also the very first person who contacted Next after we launched our podcast during the pandemic to offer sponsorship. And it is thanks to him and our other early partners that we are here today. So we are obviously very thankful for that, of course, Ashley. And Ashley, you also come from a long 20-plus year career within the iGaming industry with prominent positions in companies like Bet365. So Ashley, finally, after years, welcome to the podcast today.
Pierre, thank you for having me. But listen, the thanks goes to you. I was interested in your show from the start, and you gave us an opportunity to step in as a sponsor and have made it into something great, a great platform for us to be a part of, a great platform that I enjoy as a viewer. You know, I think you get great people on the show, and it's exactly what you told me you were going to try to build for the iGaming Next podcast, and we're really proud and grateful to be a part of it. And it's long overdue. How many times have we talked about finding an hour for me to come on and talk to you? So we'll have to do another session beyond this one, but I'm really glad to be here today because I think we've got lots to cover.
Very happy to have you here, Ashley, finally. And talking about platforms, today we are going to talk about PAM platforms. And this is one of the critical decisions that operators fail to think enough about, is this major decision when it comes to choosing their platform. And so just to kind of start things off here today, Ashley, can you do just a quick general analysis of the platform market today, perhaps, and Pragmatic Solutions place within it? Like, how has the space evolved over time? What are your USPs as Pragmatic Solutions?
Okay, it's a good question, actually. And as you set out, I've spent over 20 years in the industry, so it's changed a lot. Depends how much you want to widen the aperture about recent history or the whole history of platform. But let's go a little bit back, and let's say, you know, in the beginning of the internet gaming industry, there wasn't a lot of platforms to choose from. So you had, you know, companies like Microgaming or Playtech. You had these companies that came out with full stack solutions. They could provide you everything you needed to run your casino or casino and betting business. Some companies went down that route. Some companies went down the route of building technology because there wasn't a lot to choose from. And at that time, in order to get into the game, you often needed to build technology to support your business. Well, a lot has changed over the last 20 years. And now the landscape is comprised of some of those companies that still that started out providing a full stack solution are still doing so today. Some of the names I mentioned and several others. Some of the companies that built their own tech, you know, a decade ago or longer, are still operating on their own technology stacks. And increasingly, you have a variety of companies of varying degrees of tenure or focus in terms of market penetration, providing a licensable product like we do at Pragmatic Solutions to give operators an opportunity to integrate or build upon a platform as a building block for their tech stack. What surprises me is how much volatility there is, how much movement there is in the market. There's a lot of companies that started out with one strategy that are revisiting now, have had a reason because of the evolution of the industry generally, let's say regulated markets being one of the drivers. It introduces a lot of technical complexity, is causing a reason for a lot of companies to reconsider it. Do they have the right technology today to support the business plans that they have for tomorrow? Or are they suffering from technology holding them back? And that's forcing a lot of companies to, you know, open RFPs or contact vendors like us to discuss what we might be able to do to provide them an alternative technology solution to what they have today. And that's a lot more movement in the market than I thought, you know, that I might have expected before joining this company 4 years ago, before I joined Pragmatic to run the platform business. So it's an exciting time. There's a lot going on, but that means that a lot of management teams, stakeholders, seniors, C-level executives, and investors in businesses have a lot to consider because this is possibly the most critical decision that an online gaming operator will take is, how do they approach their strategy towards platform technology? It underpins the entirety of the business. Everything connects to the PAM. All services run through the PAM. All registered customer accounts are held in the PAM. And it can really be a gateway to success and expansion into new markets, and if they make the wrong choice, it carries a lot of additional risk in the success of their business. So I don't know. There's a lot going on. A lot of companies are facing that decision, and we've tried to present ourselves with an alternative way to approach that. And as you know, Pierre, I've always said this to you, we like to take a more cerebral approach, talk to the mind as much as or more than the heart in this strategic decision. And, we really enjoy the engagement we have with operators and helping them navigate their way through transforming their business from what worked for them in yesterday's market into what solutions and technology they need in tomorrow's market.
Right, and you recently wrote a comprehensive white paper on this very topic titled A Pragmatic Approach to Platform Selection. I see what you did there, very clever with that topic, by the way. But this kind of underpins what you are talking about. It breaks down these considerations that you need to think about as an operator, whether to build in-house, whether to acquire a third-party platform, or whether to go for a third-party solution such as yourselves, and then also, breaking down those different third-party solutions and so on. And I think, especially if you think about the trend of vertical integration that was somewhat born in the North American side a couple of years ago when the industry exploded over there, and the assumption from many of the tier one operators that vertical integration and owning the technology stack is the kind of the only way to go. That was the assumption, and without really digging into the deeper fundamental questions of why that is the truth for them. But can you talk a little bit more about the white paper that you put together? Can you dig in a little bit more to that? What was the premise? And can you summarize it a little bit perhaps for us?
Okay, so we spend a lot of time in discussions with operators that are facing this critical business decision. And they're often at a turning point when they're facing this decision. They've either establishing a new business and they need to make a decision now about the technology that's going to support the ambitions of the company, whether that's markets or products they want to have or competitive strategies for marketing that they want to support. Whatever it is their business goals, it's going to be delivered by technology, and they're facing a decision about what's the right platform to use. Or as we said, companies that are already on one technology, their own, or something they're licensing from another party, and for whatever reason, they've got a reason to reconsider it. So we come through this process as a vendor providing a technology proposition that we feel very strongly has got some serious advantages and is deserving of consideration in the market. But you're often in a competitive process and a discussion with that operator as they're evaluating various options on the market. And often they're very transparent in those discussions. They'll explain to you what they're trying to achieve, what they're valuing as their key criteria, whether it's a commercial objective, they're trying to find a lower cost, operational cost, optimize something about their business, whether they're trying to get into more markets, whether they have technical backlog that is impairing the marketing and commercial development of their business that they feel always falls to a bottleneck on technology, and they're trying to alleviate that. But we hear all sorts of avenues by which, or perspectives by which they're approaching the decision. And from my desk, I see that there's a different, each objective that each stakeholder has or management team has in the way they're approaching it has value. Rarely do I see someone that sees the full 360. And so what we thought with our white paper was, let's distill some of the conversations we've had with operators independently into a thought piece for management teams and leadership teams to help them navigate platform selection. We tried as best we can to be objective and impartial, not make it too much of a marketing piece in favor of our company, but we can't help but speak for the intentional ways that we do things because they are intentional and we do them for a reason. So, it is published by us, but I think it services any management team, regardless of which direction they go, to provoke thought and encourage them to think about things differently and look at all perspectives. And I think one of the key tenets to that, I think that, if I distill this white paper up to the highest level, it's actually not about technology. I mean, ultimately, you have to validate the technology for its technical capabilities, and you're going to want to look at benchmark analysis of performance of the platform, and you'll want to understand the technology it's built with. But what we're trying to provoke in terms of thought is for the business leaders that are making these decisions to start first with their business objectives. because that's where we found that the conversations get most interesting. Is let's talk about technology. Secondly, to what are your key business objectives that you're trying to achieve in the next 5 years, 3 years, 24 months? Now let's map that to what's the right approach to get you there with the lowest risk, lowest cost, highest potential execution certainty, right? And that's going to tick as many of your boxes as possible that are meaningful to the business objective. So secondly, once you've articulated what your business objectives are, let's now map the technology solutions that you're looking for or that you're evaluating against which ones score highest against delivering your business objectives. And that's one of the key tenets we set out in the white paper, is to start to steer the dialogue a bit that way. Now, it's not for us shying away from a technical discussion with technical people, because we think that's critical, and we think we will also measure very well on those dynamics. But it's that should be viewed in the context of what are you trying to achieve as a management team? What are you trying to deliver in terms of value creation for your shareholders? And then how can technology support that? And what's the best way to achieve that by de-risking execution and leveraging as much as you can of what's proven in order to have a foundational building block for your technical estate while leaving you the flexibility and control to differentiate your experience for customers in the last mile to the customer where it's tangible. So in the white paper, we set out some comparisons about a little bit of the history of how platforms were typically offered in the market. Some operators went the route of building their own. Some operators licensed from companies that were quite monolithic in the way they provided technology. You took everything from them. They were a game provider and a platform provider and complementary service provider. The maturation of the market has come to where we believe we're introducing a novel approach, which is to think of technology at the platform level like the CPU in a motherboard. And as a business leader in this sector, looking at how to build the technical services to deliver your business objective, that you can use a technology like our PAM platform as a central processing unit in the motherboard to which you can connect any complementary service, integrated content provider, integrated service provider, pull data off the platform, etc., and still leaves you the room to have an in-house technical team, do interesting things, customize and differentiate, but you're leveraging core technology that's proven, is already regulated market ready, is already integrated with a variety of vendors, is moving at a very high velocity, and is de-risked in terms of execution. You know it's not going to fall over when your business grows to the scale of your business objectives. So we set out a number of these arguments here. I could go into more detail, as you know, but it's set out in the white paper. It's available for free download from our website. I encourage everybody who's listening to give it a read. We'd love to talk about it, too. I mean, if there's operators out there that are looking at these sort of critical business decision about what platform technology to use, please download our white paper, have a read, and then arrange a call with us. We'd be happy to talk with you about it, the rationale behind the thoughts that we put there and what we think should be the priorities in that decision-making process, and then how we can deliver against what we say.
Brilliant. So we also going to link to the white paper in the show notes here to this post, whether you're listening to Spotify, YouTube, or seeing this on LinkedIn. The link to the white paper will be available also in the description here. I want to talk a little bit about a few concerns perhaps that operators would have by considering to outsource their PAM platform to a third-party provider. One of which perhaps, if we think about development turnarounds, for example, like isn't it true that operators perhaps would assume that if they own the technology in-house, they have the developers in-house, that they obviously can create their own prioritization and their own development roadmaps, whereas perhaps a third-party provider would get a lot of different requests from a lot of different customers, and you are essentially at mercy of you choosing to prioritize certain customers over others.
We see it differently. Frankly, see it differently. In-house technology carries first and foremost a lot of risk. There's a lot of upfront cost, both in terms of actual cost, cash outlay, and time. I mean, time is money in this business. The industry moves very quickly, and opportunities evaporate very quickly in terms of new markets that open up. Very quickly, the leaders in that market get established. And if you're a second mover or a third mover into a new market, you may not have the same opportunities that a first mover in that market had. So one of the big risks and costs of taking that in-house route, that I understand the rationale behind it, that I could see the thought process that would say, well, if I control everything and I just put some developers over there, I'll be able to, be on top of what they're doing every day. I'll be able to ensure that they're only working on what's important to our business, and we'll get somewhere faster. But you're inviting a lot of risk into the business and a lot of lost time in developing that technology in-house when you could license something proven on the market and get started right away. That's one. Two is, this is really hard. Platform at scale is very difficult. We have several hundred developers and engineers and very talented people on our teams that have been at this for over a decade now. And they're supported by, management teams and product managers and technical leadership in the company and account managers that interface with customers across the industry on a daily basis. We have a lot of intel that came to our team because we hired the right engineers in the first place, that's now been proven on the market because we've been in development of this platform in an evolutionary sense for the last decade. And we've brought some really smart people to inform the development that we do going forward, and we're receiving information from the market. We have customers actively using our technology every day. That's informing how we build it. If you go about that journey on your own, you're going to be missing a lot of data points that can help you in building the right technology. And the speed and the freedom you think you might have in that strategy ignores for a moment also that most of the services provided by the platform, as much as I think it's not the prettiest word I like to use, are commodity. The services of the PAM platform stores the player account, processes the transaction, connects all the integrated vendors and payment providers and service providers and content providers, manages the life cycle. It orchestrates the customer life cycle. So everything from your onboarding journey, your KYC, ID verification, checking the player against external self-exclusion or national self-exclusion databases, qualifying the player against an electoral roll or ID verification service, that onboarding, the issuance of bonuses, the CRM integration, the communication with customers, everything to do with that. These are critical to the business, but they're not often the area where you'll differentiate one company from another. Everybody has to do that to a certain, with robustly, with very low latency, and in regulated markets with an increasing number of interfaces with external data points that need to be well connected and tested and certified. So this isn't really an area where you're going to exercise a unique approach or differentiate. What you really need is something that's performant and you can reliably extend through API connections and integrations to create a differentiated product. I mean, let me try an analogy for a second. Analogy or metaphor. I never know which is the right word, but you'll know what I mean in a second. Name me an airline that builds their own planes. Well, they don't, right? It's absurd to think of an airline that would build their own planes. Yet, with a 737, focusing on customer experience, you could be Ryanair or you could be Emirates. Now, the airplane itself is the same core product, but you're greatly differentiating at opposite ends of the spectrum of how you appeal to the consumer, whether you're a budget airline, which could be wildly successful, by the way. There's nothing wrong with being a budget airline, or you're a premium airline, and you're differentiating in the parts that are tangible and tactile to the customer. So in a way, the same is true here. The objective of building a platform is sort of focusing on the airplane rather than the airline in that analogy. And where you will really differentiate in the market and capture the interest of consumers and create an experience that's worthy of someone crossing the road virtually to play with you or maintaining their loyalty to you as an operator is going to be in what you do to extend beyond the core commodity services that are serviced by the PAM platform. So if you get to that point in the thought process, it starts to dilute the rationale that you need to build this part. It's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you money. It's going to carry with it a lot of risk. It might work at the short term, but as your business scales, it might fall over. You haven't proven your new technology at scale. You can license something on the market like the PAM platform that we offer that is proven at scale. So it sort of comes into why would you do that? And even if you were to do that, why would you start there? Wouldn't it make more sense to start with something that is proven, use that as the core CPU on your motherboard, and then build the rest around it? So right. I don't know that there was a time when there was not a lot of options in the market in the early days of the industry. Like I said, we roll back the clock 20 years ago when Bet365 or what became 888 or what became Entain today started. with the businesses they were building, it made sense to build the technology because they were also building the product. They also built the sports book. They also built the poker platform. So they built the PAM at the same time. But there's no need to do that anymore today. And in today's regulated world, it's much more complicated. It's hard work.
Yeah, I really like your analogy of the airplane. I guess another analogy as well that hits pretty close would be the analogy of a car, where I drive a Toyota, a Ferrari red Toyota Aygo, by the way, and the steering wheel is not made by Toyota, right? Like the tires are not made by Toyota, and actually, very few parts are produced internally by Toyota. It's for the most part these are outsourced parts that make up the car, or the iPhone, for the most part is not made by Apple, right? It's external suppliers. And why would Toyota
you get it exactly, but we, a lot of times when we have these discussions with operators, it's the whole team gets involved. We have demo sessions or follow-up meetings with our clients, and there'll be 25 people on the call. The marketing team will be there, the fraud and risk team will be there, the CS manager will be there, the operations manager will be there, and definitely at the table is the CTO. Now, I want to be clear that this is not a binary discussion. This is not that if you license platform as a CTO, if you support the logical reasons that I've set out as to why it makes sense to license proven technology like that which we can offer, that means you don't need to have a strong CTO or a technical team inside your operating business, your B2C business. There's a lot for those technical teams to do, but they're going to be working on things that truly are impactful to the customer. I think something we talked about before, Pierre, was how do you differentiate a PAM in the market when a lot of times the product looks the same? Well, that's exactly the point. The product is the tactile part that you touch and feel, the native apps, the websites, the CRM campaigns, the product portfolio, the game curation, the recommendation engine that's used. All of those things are the important parts that are the opportunities for operators to differentiate from one another or navigate a regulated market, strict regulation around promotions while still providing an engaging product. That you do at the last mile to the consumer. And in that's where if I was the decision maker inside of a large B2C operator and I had a budget for in-house technical resources, that's how I would want to deploy them, is in that last mile to the customer, and not in building commodity services that are sort of the sedimentary layer of technology that is changing because of regulations always changing, but is a commodity in terms of every operator in those markets has to satisfy the same objective. So why not consolidate my investment in that core technology as one contribution to a licensed platform where I'm not paying the full freight of all the development of the sedimentary layer of the technology challenge. And one final point on that was, is it? I think you mentioned that that building your own technology may have an upfront cost, but might make sense over time, or maybe there's an economics over time. Well, we've been doing this for 10 years. We haven't stopped development yet, so I don't know when the clock stops on when the platform is done. Right? It's an ongoing, always going, and we're developing at a high velocity. We have, as I said, over 300 engineers working on our platform. We're moving at hundreds of story points is the unit of measure we use in agile development to measure the effort of development going into the platform. We're doing releases every month with new integrations, new regulatory controls, new configurations, compatibility, and everything else. There is no end date. So building your own platform isn't for a finite early phase of the business that you have to bear that investment. To be competitive, it needs to be happening all the time.
Yeah, and I think this is maybe to the point as well. Just I like to connect the dots here between the car industry and the iGaming industry, because we are a young industry, a relatively young industry as the iGaming industry, and perhaps in the 2000s the threshold to build a competitive PAM wasn't perhaps that high, right? So larger operators would rather go down that route because the third-party solutions were maybe not that advanced. But now, turn the clock to 2024, and Pragmatic Solutions, for example, have been developing this platform for the last 10 years. And the threshold to create that competitive product today is much, much, much higher, right? And similarly, in the car industry, if you rewind the clock back to 1920s, for example, it would maybe be easier to build a competitive car than what it is today, right? So therefore, it is more likely that the car producers would outsource part of their machinery, right? It's just the bar is just constantly increasing, right? Which plays in your favor, where operators it's becoming more and more difficult to compete against a platform like yourself, I would imagine.
I don't think it's difficult to find metaphors or analogies for this sort of decision, whether it's a car company or we talk about a CPU and a motherboard. You can build all sorts of great tech by using the same processor from Intel or AMD, right? And a lot of handset manufacturers make really innovative new handsets, but they're using internal processors that come from a third party. So whether we go on the car route, the airline route, or the processor route, we get the idea. And there are probably many other examples of where that makes sense, this concept. It wasn't always this way in the industry. I don't think there were as many options for an operator to look at external technology that they could leverage for all the benefits that we've already discussed about it being proven and it being advanced, to give them an accelerated starting point. That's really what you want, is you want to be at whatever. I mean, I've been involved in B2C businesses myself. I've never gone to a board meeting where as a management team, you've been challenged on what technical accomplishments have you done in the business. No, they want to know what commercial objectives have you done in the business, what strategic objectives have been achieved. What objectives connected to building value in the company have been achieved. And technology is often the excuse given as to why you've missed some of them, because we didn't have the tech ready to do it. And that's just a horrible position to be in. So it wasn't the case before that there were options available to license. So that the calculation of this conversation 10 years ago was very different than it is today. And what we're doing with our white paper is sort of raising a flag to say, don't you think it's time we think about this a little differently? And we fronted a lot of those discussions. And me personally, I've been on the side of the operator. I've been the B2C operator before. I've been inside of operators that built technology. I've seen the initial benefits and the challenges that come from that. And now I've spent the last 4 years licensing technology and realizing the great advantage it can give a management team to getting somewhere faster. And that's ultimately what you're going to be challenged with when you're back at the boardroom table, is where are we with our business objectives? And so this approach, that leverage a proven platform, whether we're the airline or the car company or the mobile phone carrier with a proven chip inside, is about getting to the goal faster and reducing the risk. And there's lots of examples of today's modern, commercial world, commercial economy, where that is proven out.
Brilliant, Ashley. Final question for you here. Quick, rapid fire question. What are the 3 most important considerations when selecting the right third-party PAM platform? 3 quick answers. Okay,
my quick thoughts here would be, Pierre, all too often we see operators that have a checklist of features they're looking for in evaluating PAM platforms. Does it do this? Do you have this? Do you have that? I'm not saying that's not important. But if I'm going to pick 3, I'm going to say history, current status, and future trajectory, right? Yeah, exactly. So when looking at a platform, of course, you're going to do that feature assessment and make sure it's got the right integrations, the right configurations, the right regulatory controls that you need to go into the markets that you currently operate in or intend to operate in. Of course, you're going to do that. Check out the technology, benchmark it. But also, it's important to understand, how did the platform get to where it is? How many of the engineers that built the platform you're considering licensing are still with the company? If they need to make changes to the platform to modernize it, do they have loyalty amongst the key, engineers, the key minds, the key brains behind the development of the technology to understand how it's built and how to evolve it and scale it up further? In some technology companies, there's a lot of turnover, and companies don't look closely enough at who are the core engineers and architects that built that platform, what's their resume look like, and how long have they been with the company, and are they staying with it? And then I'll go quick. You said rapid fire. And then the forward trajectory. What history does the vendor or the supplier have of making decisions that are in the best interest of their customers time and again? And what's their goals, and how do they align with my business objectives? Are they going to be a good partner? It's like a marriage. You're getting together in a critical one-to-one business, let's say a monogamous technical relationship with a vendor, and you need to make sure that you have the same ideas of what the future looks like. So history, current feature set, future trajectory.
some world-class analogies being shared here today. Thank you so much, Ashley. It's been absolutely fantastic to work with you guys over the last couple of years, and great to see the success of Pragmatic Solutions. I'm looking forward to following up again. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, Pierre. Always a pleasure.